Thank you for joining Introduction to Tantra. We have, again, 3 sessions that will be these 3 consecutive Wednesday nights. I want to thank Maitreya Institute for hosting. I want to thank Nana and Manita for being our online host and in-person host tonight. Thank you so much. Thank you all of you for coming, attending online and in person. And what we're going to do is, it's just 3 short sessions. So I'm going to give you an overview of how to prepare ourselves for Tantra. What is Tantra really about? How do we get into Tantra? What's the point of it? Why is it different than the Sutrayana approach of our philosophy? And we'll do some meditations occasionally. I have some videos I want to show you of Lama Yeshe talking about this in his very unique, wonderful way. And it's been a long time since he's taught in that form. So Lama was, just to orient that, was teaching initially to a community of hippies. They were the initial people that actually is the reason we're here today in this Gompa as Maitreya Institute. I would say out of the grace of their exploratory qualities, the hippie generation, they were the ones that first went to Asia, often overland through Europe, as some of you have heard stories, I'm sure, and met the lamas and met these Tibetan Buddhist teachers in all their refugee status between India and Nepal. And they were very moved by this group of Tibetans that had been exiled, escaped their country due to a communist overthrow regime, and all the horrors that they endured in these horrible refugee camps, and also during the escape, and how they remained cheerful. So this generation really wanted instruction. How did you get there? Show us how to do it. We have everything in our culture, but we're not really very happy. So that's how it all began. So Lama, often his words, his vocabulary is very much of that generation. That's where he learned English and things like that. So sometimes it might sound a bit dated, but I find it very endearing, actually. And his beautiful kind of concentrated effort, where you see him in this particular set of videos. I find Lama almost in a kind of meditative state at times, kind of seeing the long view, and then he'll come out and you'll see that lovely quality of his smile and his laughter. Just beautiful, just how he really touched so many different students. And then Lama, as you know, had a heart disciple, Lama Zopa Rinpoche, who is technically the spiritual director of our organization, of Maitreya Institute, who passed away 2 years ago. And his reincarnation has apparently taken rebirth in Nepal. We've been told by His Holiness the Dalai Lama, and there will be a group of people that search for this reincarnation, and then we'll just hope that he can have his full education uninterrupted and go through that education and then resume his position as the spiritual director, like that. So a lot of transition in our organization, but we're going to start, and the best way to start with any of our programs, as most of you know, is with a good motivation. And just take a moment to consider why you're here right now, and what is it about Tantra that interests you. And if there is some interest and you can get some information about Tantra in these 3 courses or tonight, that may it benefit you and benefit your path. So to help you move along a path, Tantra is the rapid path. So I'll explain why it's the quickest path, but that we can engage appropriately and move along that path. We really need to move along quickly because so many beings are suffering. So we want to reach Buddhahood. We want to reach a fully enlightened state, but that is not the end in this tradition. That's not the goal. The goal is to benefit all living beings perfectly, unlimitedly. Okay. And we do that as a Buddha. We do it better than in our limited consciousness, if you have a limited consciousness, like that. So take a moment, if you like that idea that it's a Mahayana motivation, feel free to include it in your own intention right now, your own motivation for our time together. Just take a moment settling your mind and setting that most positive motivation right now. And then we're going to start with some prayers we're going to show here. So I know it's a little hard for everybody. I'm going to turn this a little bit. Okay. And I want to explain, and I've explained this in some other courses, the prayers they're really essential. So we often as Westerners, we don't like prayers, the blah, blah. It's a lot of words. What am I saying? Okay. But what we're doing is we're going to visualize the Buddha in the space in front of us. This is actually how we set up to practice Tantra. Okay. So this is just simple praises to the Buddha that are standard prayers we do before a teaching starts. So I like to come from that tradition. I think it's important because it comes with all the blessings of that lineage. It comes from the blessings of the Buddha in the space in front of us. These are all just aspects of different, the enlightened mind. These are all just different pictures that we have in the room or in your own spaces. And so when we say these praises to the Buddha, really think about the words that you're saying, and I'm thinking I'm kind of honoring this omniscient mind, this realization that I'm seeing as an extension, as a manifestation externally from me, that is simply a manifestation of my highest wisdom and compassion. And so I'm honoring that in myself. I'm honoring my own fundamental goodness that we all have, because we have Buddha nature, we have a potential that can ripen into a highly realized being. So the prayers are very important of setting up a certain thing. There's some standard prayers. Sometimes we do the 4 immeasurables, sending these 4 immeasurable love and compassion, joy, equanimity out to countless living beings, immeasurable number of living beings, as well as the prayers being immeasurable. We do the 7-limb prayer. So 7 lines that can be more elaborate, but we're going to do it in 7 lines of paying homage, making offerings, certain conditions that set up again a buoyant cushion for your mind, for your practice. Like that, we offer a short mandala, which is a world system, and it represents in ancient days where you came with your most precious jewel that you had saved for years and years to get one line of the Dharma. So now the Dharma, you hear anything, it's all over the internet. You can go to any course you want, listen to any teaching for nothing. People don't realize that the prospect of making offerings to the center, making offerings for that teaching, it's not like we teach for money, but it's more from your side, practicing generosity to have that flow of Dharma in your life. So that's symbolic of that. And then we have a refuge bodhicitta prayer, the standard of what we do before the teachings. And in that 4-line verse, the whole path is contained in that. So again, if some of this is new to you, there's courses that explain all these prayers, and all of that sets you up to find the right teacher, highly realized being. You have teachers on many levels, but ideally to find that Vajra guru, that's the one that can give you tantric initiation. It has to be somebody at that level, somebody authentic, somebody you check out repeatedly, come to some of their teachings, see before you jump and say, I want this person as my teacher. And you need that guide that helps you get into Tantra, helps you practice appropriately. It's the heart of the path. It is the streamlined approach. From my personal experience, nothing's been as sweet as that, as having a relationship with my teachers like that, the right teachers, and finding these beings. Okay, so we're going to do our prayers. I'll share my screen. And thank you again for letting me speak English. The Dutch are so great with having great language skills, and I'm sorry that I can't teach in Dutch. So thank you very much. So again, imagining as if the Buddha's in the space in front, radiant golden being, so happy to help us. We can read in English. Feel free to join in if you'd like. Guru, teacher, Bhagavan, Tathagata, Arhat, perfectly complete Buddha, perfect in knowledge and good conduct, Shugata, knower of the world, supreme guide of beings to be subdued, teacher of gods and humans, to you, Buddha Bhagavan, glorious conqueror Shakyamuni, I prostrate, make offerings, and go for refuge. Guru, teacher, Bhagavan, Tathagata, Arhat, perfectly complete Buddha, perfect in knowledge and good conduct, Shugata, knower of the world, supreme guide of beings to be subdued, teacher of gods and humans, to you, Buddha Bhagavan, glorious conqueror Shakyamuni, I prostrate, make offerings, and go for refuge. Guru, teacher, Bhagavan, Tathagata, Arhat, perfectly complete Buddha, perfect in knowledge and good conduct, Shugata, knower of the world, supreme guide of beings to be subdued, teacher of gods and humans, to you, Buddha Bhagavan, glorious conqueror Shakyamuni, I prostrate, make offerings, and go for refuge. When supreme amongst humans you were born on this earth, you paced out 7 strides, then said, I am supreme in this world. To you who are wise then, I prostrate. With pure bodies formed supremely pure, wisdom ocean like a golden mountain, fame that blazes in the 3 worlds, winner of the best, savior, to you I prostrate. With the supreme signs, face like a spotless moon, color like gold, to you I prostrate. Dust free like you, the 3 worlds are not, incomparably wise one, to you I prostrate. The savior having great compassion, the teacher having all understanding, the field of merit with qualities like a vast ocean, to you, the one gone to thusness, I prostrate. The purity that frees one from attachment, the virtue that frees one from the lower realms, the one path, the sublime pure reality, to the Dharma that pacifies, I prostrate. Those who are liberated and also show the path to liberation, the holy field qualified with realizations, who are devoted to the moral precepts, to you, the sublime community intending virtue, I prostrate. Do not commit any unwholesome actions. Engage in perfect wholesome actions. Subdue one's own mind. This is the teaching of the Buddha. So those 4 lines kind of say it all, right? So think about it. Can I refrain from unwholesome activities? We have many habits of that in our mind. Can I try to practice wholesome activities, healthy activities, subdue my mind? And these verses right now, this next verse relates to emptiness. So any understanding you have that things lack inherent nature, we'll read this verse slowly. A star, a defective view, a butter lamp flame, an illusion, a dewdrop, a water bubble, a dream, lightning, a cloud. See all causative phenomena like this. By these merits may transmigratory beings attain the state of all-seeing, subdue the enemy of faults, and be freed from the ocean of samsara, disturbed by the waves of aging, sickness, and death. We're going to go to the 7 limbs. So when His Holiness is teaching, and often some other teachers, sometimes we have, honestly, like a half an hour of prayers before. Like that's how important it kind of soaks your mind. They'll have a whole thing to the lineage lamas, and it's harder for Westerners. So we tend to shortcut a little bit. Here's the 7 limb prayer. 7 very powerful lines. I prostrate reverently with my body, speech, and mind. I present clouds of every type of offering, both actually arranged and mentally emanated. I confess all my negative actions and downfalls collected from beginningless time. I rejoice in the virtues of ordinary beings and Aryas. Please remain until the end of cyclic existence and turn the wheel of Dharma for transmigratory beings. I dedicate my own and others' virtues to great enlightenment. The short mandala, again, bringing us this condition to practice generosity, to receive the teaching. This ground anointed with perfume, strewn with flowers, adorned with Mount Meru, the four continents, the sun and the moon, I imagine as a Buddha land and offer it. May all transmigratory beings enjoy this pure land. Idam Guru Ratna Mandalagam Nirata Yami. And we'll do the refuge and bodhicitta before the teaching. So we'll recite this once in the English and twice in the phonetics. I take refuge until I'm enlightened in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By my merits of listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha to benefit transmigratory beings. Sangye Jodanto Kicho Namla Janchu Baju Jagni Gyatsuchi Dagi Jiningi Peso Nampi Drola Penchu Sangye Druparsho Sangye Jodanto Kicho Namla Janchu Baju Jagni Gyatsuchi Dagi Jiningi Peso Nampi Drola Penchur Sange Droparsho. Please relax. We're going to start with a meditation. So just fine. Most of you are in a good posture here. You want to have your spine as extended as possible. It's really the most important part of our sitting posture. Most of you know that. And whatever's relaxed for you, whatever's most comfortable, perfectly fine to sit in a chair, just like you are. Have your feet straight down so the body's balanced. If you're seated in a chair, you can also experiment putting a cushion under your feet, if depending how long your legs are, if you need that, and try not to lean too heavily against the back of the chair so that your back will become strong over time, like that. It's good habits, and there's no obstruction of the flow of energy like that. So let's just lightly close our eyes and we bring the gaze inward. The eyes are focused towards the tip of the nose or the floor in the space in front of you. A normal, natural breath moving through your system. Just begin to settle the mind on that breath for a moment, just to stabilize a little bit. And as you sit here, feeling yourself grounded in a positive way, and feeling as if from your cushion, from your seat, either in a chair or on a cushion on the floor, and feel as if your spine holding the trunk of your tree upright, and you've got roots that go down into the earth. And the roots absorb all the nutrients that you need to live from the earth. So those roots draw them back up to you. It goes up into the branches, so feeding your brain, feeding all the blood coursing through you, comes all the way up into as if that upper canopy of yourself, giving yourself all that energy. And so just explore a little bit of your roots going down into the earth. Feel that love, that nourishment from Mother Earth, bringing you all the nutrients back up through your spinal column. Slowly rising energy. And let that energy gently release any tightness, any restriction or tension you're holding in your body and mind. You can imagine this energy comes all the way up the trunk of our body and goes straight up, imagine, out of the crown of your head. As if it goes up through the ceiling of this room, and just imagine that energy going all the way out into the farthest reaches of space. And imagine as our mind, just through this visualization, contacts the boundlessness of space, it experiences a boundless expansion of unobstructed awareness. That's your mind. Unobstructed awareness. And just stay in that space just for a moment. Try to experience that as best as you can. Now slowly allow your attention to begin to descend from this boundless space. It comes down back through the crown of our head and through the back of your head, the back of your neck, and coming down through that spinal column, but kind of the center of your being into your heart center and deep within the center of your chest. This is the center of your awareness. But it's in contact with the earth element below and the spaciousness above. So the earth element gives our mind a sense of calm stability, helping to concentrate our attention, allowing it to remain fixed on any object, and any object we choose. And with the aid of the space element above, our mind can experience its own spaciousness, its own clarity, alertness. So in this way, our mind has balance and poise. Balance and poise. So as you experience everyday life, too much of the earth element, we feel heavy, dull, drowsy. In that sense, we can remind ourselves about the spatial element and help it refresh us during the day. That our mind is clear awareness. If the space element is too strong, we feel dizzy, distracted, lightheaded, scattered during your day. Remind yourself about the roots of the tree, the earth element, and ground yourself again. Drawing in those nutrients to stabilize your mind. So think about this balanced quality and spend this week working with that to find that balance in your own being, your own heart and mind. So not taking ourselves too seriously and becoming leaden, dull, overly grounded, not being overly scattered and distracted so we can't focus. Finding that balance as that springboard for every day, every interaction with beings, every meeting, whatever work I'm engaged with. So please relax, and slowly when you're ready, please open your eyes. So we have, in general, I think there's a number of misconceptions about Tantra, for one. Let's get those out of the way, okay? What attracts people to Tantra is people think it's about sex, okay? So I don't know if anybody came here saying, this is what I want to hear about, and I've seen these deities in union, and I've taught this course several times before in short one evening things in a few sessions, and it seems like some people come and go, I want to know what these deities, I want to practice with my partner. This is practice. How do we do it? So there's an element of that, but it's not about desire at all. It's not about the way we think of sexual union like that. And you need to be at a very high level of practice to ever actually join in union with someone in authentic tantric practice like that. So we want to be really careful and not deceive ourselves in, like, I've heard people say, especially the culture I'm from in the United States, where people love to sometimes over promote their spiritual tendencies. So if somebody comes to me telling me they're a great tantrika, that they're a great tantric practitioner, I'm immediately wary because people don't advertise that. It's a private, it's actually a secret thing. So when you're practicing tantra, you don't advertise that to people. So that's the first flag that it's probably inauthentic. Okay, but what is it about that? What are we doing? We're shifting energies like that. And why is it the quickest path? So we're going to talk about that, but let's just look at some terminology. Back to my notes. Sorry, I don't know why this same thing's happening again. It's reorganized all my text. Okay, so let me just find them. I don't know why it's doing this. Computer loves acting up. Okay, here we go. Sorry, hang on a second. I'm not sure what's going on here. Okay. So Tantra, a Sanskrit word meaning treatise or exposition. Treatise or exposition. It's not what we think of with Tantra, but what does it really mean? Okay, what does it really mean? Let's look at literally. Literally, thread, loom, okay, a weaving, a weaving. It's something that continuously goes on, a continuity like that. That's what that's supposed to symbolize. So it also can mean a principle or a continuum, a system like that, a theory. So we have a verbal root of tan. I don't pronounce these words that well, but tan, stretch or extend, expand. Okay, stretching, extending that thread that's continuing on. And then you have the suffix tra, okay, instrument. So like a loom, an instrument of the expansion of the threading, like that. So basically what they're talking about, and they're using these words, it's interesting with Sanskrit and Tibetan especially, where you might have a word, Sangye. This was Rinpoche's brother's name, Sangye. He passed away last year, unfortunately. And Sangye, which you'd identify, means Buddha, okay? But when you really take the word Sang and Ge, Sang is elimination of all negative qualities, okay? Ge is the accumulation of all your positive qualities. So when you eliminate all your negative tendencies and qualities, gross and subtle, and when you bring in all the good qualities, fully manifest on an ultimate and a conventional level, you automatically become a Buddha. That's what a Buddha is, meaning a total extinction of any negative tendencies, a perfect being, basically. It's the same with Tantra, you have this instrument of expansion. And so in a sense, to access the super mundane through the mundane, we have a gross view of reality for most of us. I'm not labeling you negative. It's not that you're bad or anything, but we hold things to be very concretely existing, right? And we get mired in that view. First of all, the view of ourselves. Yeah. So anything that, because I hold this to be concretely existing, anything that interferes with this is going to be a problem for me. Yeah. And then I hold on very much to my body, my view, my agenda, my life. And then it extends out in a possessive quality, possessive nature. So it's my flat and my job and my car and my bike and my kid. So anytime any of that gets interfered with in a way that I don't like, then I have suffering. But mainly because I'm not seeing anything clearly at all. Because I don't have a direct perception of emptiness, the view of reality, the nature of reality. I don't see things accurately. I have what's called a misknowing. Okay, so what Tantra is doing is taking our everyday experience like that, okay? But then to really practice, you really want to have this understanding of emptiness, okay? And that starts to dismantle an ordinary view. And so Tantra is taking the very ordinary, okay, and transforming it into the extraordinary. And that's what we're really doing in 2 stages of Tantra. One is called a generation stage, and then we also have what's called a completion stage of Tantra. You're completing the path. So the generation stage means after I've had a proper initiation or empowerment, and what that means is, I'll talk a little bit more about this in the future, but what that means is I found an authentic guru. Guru is teacher in Sanskrit, but it's really one who is also blessed with virtuous qualities, like a virtuous friend that has highly realized qualities. Like that's the kind of guru you want to find for tantric initiation. And again, other teachers can lead you to that being, especially if there's great intent from your side, okay? And in Tibetan, Lama is often teacher, Lama. So Lama literally is one who is heavy. So it's not about weight, it's one who is heavy with realizations, one who's heavy with realizations. So you get that sense of, it's got to be a pretty lofty being that if they're giving you a certain initiation or empowerment, what they are is in different aspects of these enlightened deities. Okay? And there's 4 different levels of Tantra. They're giving you different, what they're doing is, they're on the lower level, they're giving you like a blessing of that deity. So when I say that deity's mantra, once they've given me the lung or the oral transmission in that empowerment, meaning they recite the mantra, they ask me to repeat that 3 times after them. Then when I recite that mantra, that saying, then it's more power for me in my mind, more powerful imprints in my mind, like that. Mantra is mind protection, mind protection. And the mantras are a type of protecting your mind. You know, it's not necessary to know exactly what every syllable means. We like to know that. Generally, as Westerners, we like to know, what am I saying? Makes sense. It's okay. They do have a meaning on one level. Mostly they have an inner resonance. So when you're reciting certain mantras, over time, with faith, with skill, with the right pronunciation, with the right blessing on your mind, all those things have an effect. And you start to have a very powerful, virtuous resonance inside that starts shifting your mind, and it protects your mind. And it protects your mind even on a mundane level. Even on a mundane level. I remember years ago, there was a very bad earthquake in San Francisco when I lived there at one point. And I was at work in a big building and working at a magazine. And it had my office, 30 people worked there, and there was like an open floor plan. So you had your own walls, but the top was open. So you could hear. So when the earthquake came, the building wasn't very good. It was a stone building. So the plaster started popping from the ceiling, and all the windows were popping and breaking, and you could hear the earthquake actually had a sound. I heard a sound before it hit. And but I could hear my office workers, my colleagues, and some of them were screaming, and some were saying curse words. Because when you have an emergency and then you go, something like that in English. And so again, if the building comes down on your head at that moment, and kaka is what's on your lips, right? In certain languages, right? Then one of my friends said, yeah, then you come back as a fly, because they love kaka. So if that's your last thought, well, what if you say a mantra? What if you have a mantra that cuts it? So some Dharma practitioners are saying, what were you thinking about at the moment of the earthquake? Where could you get yourself to say, were you saying a mantra at that point, or was your mind in another emergency mode and what was happening? So it's something you want to think about, because we'd like to very much pattern ourselves to have that working in our lives, so that when we're dying, that's what is access, is virtue, is access, virtuous habits in my mind. Okay. And so you have this thread transforming, identifying the microcosm within the macrocosm. Okay. And then we also have things of, so you first have this generation stage. Let me go back to that. You'd have a proper initiation. And then what you can do is, let's say you got initiated into a practice of, I'll just give you an example. Here's a beautiful 4-arm version of the Buddha of compassion we have in the room. 4-arm tanka here, painting of the Buddha of compassion. The Buddha of compassion, Chenrezig, has many different versions. One is a 1,000-arm version. His Holiness the Dalai Lama is said to be an embodiment of. This is a simple 4-arm version. Okay, it's got 2 arms here, that is chest holding a jewel, and the other 2 here. I think one is holding a crystal rosary, like that. So what you do is, if you get an initiation into that, that's a lower tantra that you have, it's a blessing. But then what it does is it kind of gives you permission to do a practice a little bit more strongly with that deity. And the reason is you want to form a closer connection to that deity, to that aspect of the enlightened consciousness. Wouldn't we want to form a closer connection with compassion? Doesn't it make sense? If that's something you're interested in, to grow compassion in you, then what you could do is you could do a retreat, where you take yourself away for a weekend or a week, something like that. And there's sometimes group retreats with this practice. We're actually going to do a short retreat in France on the 1,000-arm Chenrezig. And we'll be incorporating that with some Lojong mind training verses. And it's really beautiful. And so we recite some mantras. The simplest mantra of the Buddha of compassion, most of you know, is Om Mani Padme Hum. So through that experience of reciting those mantras, right, which you set that practice up with some preliminary prayers and things like some of the prayers we just did, you set it up so there's a flow to this energy. Then I visualize the Buddha. Then I bring the Buddha to my crown, and eventually through tantric practice, I'm given permission to visualize myself, to generate myself. That's the generation stage, as an aspect of the enlightened mind in that form. So then I visualize myself as Chenrezig, as this Buddha of compassion. And then I do the mantra with a visualization of that mantra rotating at my heart, or light going out, light coming in, really energizing me with compassion. It's beautiful. So what you do is you may spend years, you may spend lifetimes doing this generation practice. I'm generating myself as a deity, they would say, okay, because I want to actualize myself as the extraordinary, okay? And then the more elaborate tantric practices have also a huger visualization of that deity's paradise that you try to visualize. Some of them have many other deities you're trying to visualize. It can be very complex. So that's why you have to spend long sessions, often over and over and over in your life, if you find it worthwhile and you want to actualize a quick path to enlightenment, generating myself as the deity and the deity's entourage and that deity's world system. Beautiful paradise. Okay. So what happens is it starts shifting your mind a little bit. Right? Now, some of these deities are in union. So you visualize yourself like that, in union, like that. So if you want to say there's a sexual aspect, for many years in the generation stage, that's what you're generating, but alone, not with a partner. Now, some people I know, when they've been doing generation stage practices, if they have a partner that has gotten the same initiation and does the same practice or does a similar practice, then they might practice. So what you can do is, if you have a partner, generally a lot of people are having sex. It's normal. There's nothing wrong with that, except that check, because often it creates more desire, creates more, I wasn't always a nun. Okay. So I know that, like, desire and the acting on desire in my mind creates more desire, more of that wanting, that thinking about it. Like, come on, we're human beings. It's normal. Okay. But so what you can do, and I've had many friends that do this, where they feel like, well, better than just having ordinary sex, and better just being interested in my getting off, or, my pleasure, like that. If we can kind of do these tantric practices and these visualizations while we're engaged in union, maybe it leaves some better imprints on the mind. Fair enough. I think it probably does. I think it's probably not a bad way to practice if you know that you're going to have sex anyway. Why not make it a little bit loftier? Do we ever have a good motivation for doing that? Sometimes we never think about it. There are some people, partners, very focused on their partner's pleasure. That's very nice. That's a very nice extension of the heart, thinking of them more than you. But all that actual other desire and how it can be so pleasurable, okay, is a mistaken way of doing it, is a mistaken way of having ultimate bliss, okay? So we get a taste of it in sex, and that's why we get very attracted to it. Tantra lifts it up to a whole different level like that. So again, initially, you've got this generation stage, generating yourself, and over you're soaking your mind in that view of I'm this deity, a certain deity in a certain deity's world system that's a pure realm, perfect environment. So when I come out of that meditation, and some people that have these initiations, and the other thing is, once you find a qualified guru at that level, and you really, and His Holiness the Dalai Lama says, take 6 years and check up. Don't just jump at, because everybody else has a guru, I want one. This person looks okay. You check up on them, make sure they're walking the talk, that they're qualified, check out their students. Is this an authentic being? They could be male, female, Tibetan, white, doesn't matter, okay? Make sure it's authentic, right? And then you realize and go to some of their teachings in person. You can watch things online, but go in person. Maybe you can get an appointment with them at some point and ask about your practice. Ask where, see what happens. Don't ask for an appointment unless you're willing to follow the advice. Don't ask for the advice unless you're willing to do it, and then try to follow the advice, and then check your mind. Was it helpful or not helpful? The advice may not be easy, by the way. Doesn't mean it's going to be an easy ride, but this is what leads you to freedom. So it's really the crux of the path. I can't speak about it enough. And I know a lot of Westerners are like, I don't need a teacher. I don't want to hear about the teacher. You can't really practice Tantra without it. Okay. So then what will happen is that authentic teacher, highly realized, will know your mind. They'll know what the best practice for you. And they often advise people, like Lama Zopa Rinpoche did, they'll advise you on your yidam, meditational deity. Okay. And that means it's one of these pictures, one of these aspects of the Buddha, okay, that you have a special dispensation with, propensity with. By doing that practice, that's a quicker path for you. That's the practice you should be doing. So you could be given one or two of these deities. And then what you'd like to do is find where you can get that initiation as quickly as you can. I mean, as much as you have to often do a lot of practice to first get there. Get the initiation, authentic initiation, and then learn the long practice for that deity. Some are longer than others, some are shorter, right? And try to learn to familiarize yourself with that practice. It's called a sadhana, okay? Sadhana means method of accomplishment, meaning that through this practice, which lays out prayers, practices, visualizations, again, of that deity in its world system, with all its entourage around, with a certain mantra that you would be reciting during that practice, certain degree, certain visualization. Through that practice, I can actualize higher states of realization, right? But I'm going to spend a lot of time doing generation stage of that practice. And that's my practice. So in a sense, that's a practice the teacher gave me to do that I have more of a propensity, you'd say. So nice connection, okay? Then they have completion stage. What completion stage of Tantra involves is, I'm now going to work with subtle energies in the body, okay? We have a subtle energy network, okay? And what you need to do is also get some initiation and instruction on that. So this is all, think about, this is a process. This is a process. But what we want to do is, I'm going to go back a little bit. In order to get to the process of Tantra, we need a good foundation. We need a good foundation. So let me just go on a little bit about Tantra, the word Tantra. The warp of a loom, or the strands of a braid, like strings of a harp. The Tantra practices serve as a structure for intertwining, okay, the sutra themes, okay? Sutra is our underlying philosophy, all the discourses the Buddha gave, okay? And that's what we practice. So in this tradition, we're often hearing about the Lam Rim. Many of you heard of the Lam Rim? Done some Discovering Buddhism courses? And has anyone in here had highest yoga tantra initiation? Anybody in here? Yeah, a couple people. Okay, great. So eventually that's the kind of tantra we're going to go for, where you get to higher states like that. So you're basically intertwining the sutra themes, and you weave a tapestry of enlightenment. That's what's happening. So tantra combines physical, verbal, mental expressions, okay, of each practice. You braid together, you creating a holistic path to enlightenment and a holistic path of development, okay? Okay, because you cannot integrate and practice simultaneously all the sutra themes, okay? Tantra practice is very, very advanced because some of it you're actualizing simultaneously. That's why it's the quickest path to enlightenment, okay? So Tantra is also known by other names. We hear different names, focus. We hear the diamond vehicle for Tantra, okay? Vajrayana, they'll call it in Sanskrit. The diamond vehicle is the Vajrayana, okay? We hear lightning vehicle because it's quick, okay? It emphasizes the speed with which these powerful teachings can lead us to this indestructible, diamond hard state of awareness and enlightenment. Diamond hard, indestructible like a diamond, okay? And then we hear Tantra vehicle, Tantrayana, okay? A name derived from advanced discourses which Shakyamuni Buddha revealed these powerful teachings. All of these teachings came initially from the Buddha over different periods of time. And then we have something called Mantrayana, vehicle secret mantra, okay? So they're all the same, they're all referring to the same thing. You hear different, but all means the same thing. So secret mantra, where I'm reciting, I was given this discourse secret mantra to recite. Some of the tantric mantras, technically they say people shouldn't recite unless you've had the initiation or a highest yoga tantra initiation. Tantric teachings are often referred to as secret in the sense that these very powerful techniques, especially when you're using the subtle body, you don't expose them to others that haven't been prepared like that. I mean, I have permission to talk about it at this level, certainly like that, but there's parts of it I can't really reveal like that. And so again, if you're layering these teachings to people and they don't have proper faith, they don't have proper training, it can send them into a tailspin of something else, that they misinterpret something like that. They just want some quick path. They want a quick fix. They want the pill, and then everything in my spiritual practice will be done. This is not the path. Tibetan Buddhism isn't the path if you want something quick and easy. This isn't it. Okay, whether it's sutra, whether it's tantra, it doesn't matter like that. And that's a hard one for Westerners, especially for my culture, okay?
That's the question.
Yes.
You said before that it's going to be the fast path.
So Tantra is the fastest path. And yet what I mean is, in order to get to Tantra, I hope you have a whole foundation of sutra under your belt, which could take years. So again, how many of you have done Discovering Buddhism courses? Okay, so not that many people in here. So that's a foundational approach from our thing. So if this is your first course that you're coming to, again, there's a whole lot of background that I would highly recommend. It's like, again, putting the foundation on your house. Tantra is the roof. So there's no point putting the roof on, but here you can get some exposure to Introduction to Tantra, absolutely. And then you kind of go, okay, so what do I need to do to get ready? And what you need to do is have some understanding of something I'm going to go into in a moment, called the three principal aspects of the path. The three principal aspects of the path, which takes us through the whole Sutrayana approach. So I'm going to talk about that in a moment. Really, really important. So then when you get to Tantra, then it's a little speedier. So one of the things in our spiritual approach, a lot of people don't like this, is this is kind of lives long practice. Now, some people don't believe in reincarnation, I understand, but it's even a lifelong practice. So this isn't something that in 2 weeks you've dismantled your anger. It just doesn't work that way. It's very rare that that would happen. Just looking at the ages in the room, if you've been going along for 20 or 30 years or even 40 years, thinking one way that has negative ramifications, you can't undo that in 2 weeks or 2 months. So you're going to keep working at different things. And people come back to me and go, I've been meditating for 2 months and I still get angry. Oh, right. Thank you. The camera's right above your head. So for the people online. So the other thing you're doing is if you're taking, there's 4 levels of Tantra. I'll talk about those in a moment. And if you're taking a tantric initiation at the highest level, which is called highest yoga tantra, okay, you are also given a set of tantric vows. So the way we get into Buddhism from the beginning is initially you start reading some books. You found out there was a center, you come to the center, you have a little bit of a meditation practice going, or you've had one going for a while, great. You learn a little bit more how to deepen the practice. You start to take some of the beginning courses. You might like those. From those, you read some books, do some other deepening meditations, great, like that. And things start moving along, basically like that. Slowly kind of soaking your mind in a certain view. And then at some point, some people say, you know, I heard there's a refuge ceremony or there's a kind of refuge that I want to take refuge in Buddhism, meaning I want to acknowledge this is my path. I want to follow a Buddhist path. So we have a marker like a refuge ceremony. So I've given refuge to students before, and you can get a refuge name, and it's a short ceremony, and you're basically acknowledging this is my path. So first, then you'd have refuge, what's called refuge precepts. Refuge precepts. They're like little vows. They're not as strong as vows, but they're precepts. And so I would go over exactly what they are, and you can read them in advance to know, is this something that I want to do? I'll give you an example. One of them is you take refuge in the Buddha, because you take refuge in Buddha, Dharma, Sangha. You know, Buddha, the historical Buddha, and also representing the omniscient mind. You take refuge in the Dharma, which are the teachings, and on an ultimate level, the teachings on emptiness. Taking refuge in the Sangha as your spiritual community, like a center like this. And you're also taking refuge in ultimate level, the Arya Sangha, those who've had a direct perception of emptiness. Okay, so some of you've heard this before. So then from there, if you take refuge in the Buddha, for instance, one of the precepts is, well, then I'm not going to seek refuge and protection and kind of my whole religious training and everything in other worldly gods. Okay, like that. That's your acknowledgement. However, would you say, so I can never go to church again with my family or go to a temple? Or no, you go what's really your path? Is that your path? You know, so you want to make a decision. I really want to do Buddhism like that. That would be one thing. One of the things, you take refuge in the Dharma. After that, as a result, you'd be very conscious of any Dharma text or even a letter of the Dharma, because it's very sacred. And you see if it's on the floor crumpled up, you pick it up off the floor, put it on the table, or make sure it's disposed of properly, something like that. You know, you want to keep your books, put a coffee cup on it, something like that. Okay. So after you take refuge precepts, you can also take something called the 5 lay vows. This is for lay practitioners, not monastics. They're basic Buddhist precepts. Okay? And you can choose, if people take refuge with me and they want to take 5 lay vows, they have to take number 1, no harming or killing. That's a basic Buddhist precept. So if you want to follow this path, at least take that one. Okay. But for me, what I really ask is for people to really consider, one of the things I ask them not to try to harm is insects. So we kill a lot of insects, and we don't, you know, when I was raised, I wasn't really shown that that was a bad thing to do like that. We don't really understand the sanctity of life. So that's one of the things also, like try to refrain from harming insects and killing animals as much as you can, like that, precepts. And then the other precepts are no stealing, no lying, no sexual misconduct, which is like adultery, and no intoxicants. And then you can choose of the other 4 which you'd like to take. Some people take all 5, you know. Most people take 4, and then the intoxicants ones, they want to have a glass of wine, you know, they don't want to take that. But again, then you'd have lay precepts. The next level you would have are something called bodhisattva vows. Bodhisattva vows. So these you can take into, you know, initially as a separate ceremony with someone qualified to give you bodhisattva vows. but a lot of times in the lower tantras, when you take those blessings or empowerments, they give you bodhisattva vows automatically. So there's 18 root bodhisattva vows. There's 46 auxiliary or secondary vows. Okay. These are vows you can learn in advance and read a booklet about, you know, all the things. There's a short booklet we have on bodhisattva vows. It's beautiful, part of our organization. And most of you are probably already living under these bodhisattva vows. I'll give you an example. Number one is refraining from the first one is kind of not pumping myself up, not taking somebody else down, thinking that I'm so great like that. We already live like, you know, we're already living like that. I don't kind of go around boasting that I'm, you know, things like that. So most of you're living under, you know, not creating, destroying cities and towns and things. You know, that's a whole list of them like that. Very helpful, very helpful. Okay. Then the last set of vows are tantric vows. Okay. Separate from ordination vows. That would be another set of vows you'd have, but most people aren't going to get ordained. But people that get into highest yoga tantra initiations, no, sorry, the first bodhisattva vow, I lost it from them, praising myself and belittling others. So like I was saying, pumping myself, praising myself and belittling others. We don't really want to do that, right? Most of us are not doing that. Okay. So occasionally it'll happen where you criticize somebody in a mean way, but rarely do we do it. So we're already living under a lot of these bodhisattva vows. And then the 46 auxiliary vows are designed like a little bit of an outer wall to help us protect the 18 root vows. So again, those are vows you can read in advance, prepare yourself. Is this something I want to take? And then you have the tantric vows. Tantric vows you cannot read in advance or prepare. So there's a little bit of a leap of faith at that point, but you've already gotten enough of a foundation on that you feel like, yes, this is going to be another good thing. Now, here's the thing about the vows. And when I got ordained, I had some friends, some lay friends that said to me, so now you can't do this anymore. And you can't do this and you can't do this. And I remember feeling, suddenly I felt like, did I make a mistake? You know, am I too restrained from things that I can't do that I like doing? And so I really thought about it. And then I realized that the things these vows restrain you from on all the different levels is negative behavior, negative mind states. Isn't that what we want to get free? That's how we get free, by the way. So every time you have a problem come up in your life, we have different ways we try to sort it, but there's always going to be another problem that comes up. That's samsara's nature. Samsara, the turning cycle through cyclic existence of birth, old age, sickness, and death, and all of that is suffering. So you're never going to escape suffering as long as you're in samsara. And as long as you're an ordinary being who's not ultimately free, that's what you're going to experience over and over and over again. So mostly in our culture and our world systems, we have it pretty physically comfortable. And that's what's hard for us, is life is okay. It's kind of good enough. Okay, but then a problem comes. Okay. So we have small problems that we deal with every day in some constructive way. And then we have really big problems. So you lose a loved one. And eventually you're going to die. And everybody dies. And there's nothing you can do about it like that. So, and we can't control how we're going to die or when we're going to die. We'd like to think we can. And we have ideas that we're going to die when we're 85 years old in our sleep peacefully. How many people do you know who die like that? Not very many. So then this big suffering comes, you know, or you lose your job, or your partner leaves you abruptly, or there's an issue and your kid is sick, you know, or you get a horrible disease, which I hope you don't. But these things come up. How's your mind? What tools do you have to deal with it constructively, peacefully? And some people just motor through it and they're fine. And other people have a complete meltdown. And we all know people that melt down over little things, no control over their mind at all. Okay. So the whole premise of this path and the vows, what the vows do is they're restraining you from those kind of behaviors that get you into trouble. They help you enhance all your positive qualities. So if you learn your vows first of all, if you take the vows properly and you learn your vows and you keep your vows, you automatically get enlightened. That's what they're designed to do. So the vows free you. It's not that you can't do this anymore and you can't do that anymore. They free you. So once I understood that, then I was really happy to have more vows. Again, you have to learn them and keep them. So it's not just about having vows. There's people that want to be in a highest yoga tantra initiation because everybody else is in there. I want to be in there. Everybody's in there. Everybody's in there with the Lama. I saw it so many times in my Dharma career. Okay. But first check up, are there commitments for this initiation, this empowerment? Because usually they come with a daily commitment. Every day you have to read a certain practice a few times. Think about it, meditate on it. Be the deity in that practice. Sometimes you have to recite mantras every day. So if you don't intend to keep those commitments, don't take the empowerment because it shortens the life of the initiating teacher that's giving you that empowerment. It's a serious thing, serious thing. And they're for life. The tantric vows are for life. Once you take them, they're on your continuum. You have to keep them. Once you take that thing and they say there's a commitment, you need to keep the commitment. Sometimes there's retreat commitments. Sometimes there's just a daily practice commitment. But all of it's designed to soak your mind in that view of that extraordinary reality, that everybody's a light being in a deity's paradise. Won't we like to exist in that every day? That's what we try to visualize. So every day I do generation stage practices from these commitments that I've had of these empowerments. And then when you come out, you're trying to see everybody in that light. Myself as the deity in the center of it, right? Not in a prideful way, not that I'm some great being, okay? But it lifts your mind up from all the gunkiness of our everyday lives, all the ordinariness. Why not have a little loftier view if it's possible? Why not try to actualize that? Okay, so that's one thing going on with tantric practice. Am I communicating, everybody? Is it making sense? Mm-hmm. Okay, so it's not, I know these courses are always like, it wasn't what I thought it was going to be about, Okay, but slowly, but I just really want to, this is the basis. This is the basis. Any questions so far? Everybody okay online? Okay, just checking. And also one thing I wanted to say for some of you is thank you so much for the people that have their cameras on. We do want to feel like, for those online, I forgot to mention that we are, that you're in a gompa, you're in a meditation room, okay? So the course is, it's best if you can put your camera on, okay? And that it's not a time to kind of be eating and drinking wine and lying down in bed. And you really want to create a good habit for yourself. So I just wanted to mention that. It's really helpful. Thank you. And then you have the term mantra again, mind training. Sorry, mind protection, mind protection. You're reciting in each of these sadhanas, these practices, whatever you're initiated or given the blessing for, each deity has its own little Sanskrit saying or Tibetan saying, and it has an energy to it. The simplest one I mentioned, the Buddha of compassion, Om Mani Padme Hum, that mantra, that saying means things on different levels, okay? Most of it is all about bliss and void. Most of it is all about that, getting you back to that. Meaning, okay, the bliss is our method of bodhicitta. The bliss is our method, bodhicitta. How am I going to get enlightened? With the good heart. Bodhicitta is a Sanskrit term. Bodhi is enlightenment. Chitta is mind. The mind of enlightenment is, I want to get enlightened to benefit every living being. I want to cherish others more than myself. I want to think of them more. I want to equalize and exchange myself with others and care for other beings. Okay, so that's our method side, right? And then we have a wisdom side. Wisdom side. I said method and wisdom. Wisdom, realizing emptiness. What is our view when I'm getting enlightened? And this is the crux of Tantra. I have to continue to remember emptiness to really be practicing Tantra accurately. So when you're in a tantric sadhana, when you're in that method of accomplishment, that it could be a booklet of the prayers and then visualization of the deity's paradise, the deity in the middle, it has mantra recitation, and then it'll also include generally a completion stage practice of that deity, meaning using the subtle energy systems in the body. And you visualize that after you've gotten instruction on that, you then visualize that and you work with the energy in that as well to actualize higher states of realization. So as you're working with the wisdom part, the first line that it often says is Tonpan Nindong, everything is empty. It always starts with everything is empty. Everything is in emptiness. To remind yourself, if you don't have that view and you're back in ordinary view, right, you've missed the point of Tantra. So I have to dissolve everything in emptiness, meaning emptiness means a lack of inherent nature. That's all that it means, is a lack of inherent nature, a lack of concrete existence. This is what we impute on everything. I am here. I am important. I'm the center of my universe. And I exist permanently, unchanging, concretely, from my own side, with my own nature, intrinsically. I'm giving you synonyms for concrete existence, for inherent nature, okay? But I don't exist that way at all, okay? I exist by depending on other things. That's how I rise. I depend on my body and mind to come into being. Okay, what I'll call the 5 aggregates, my body and mind. My body is my form aggregate. There's 1 form aggregate and 4 mental aggregates. The 4 mental aggregates make up my mind. So, but just to simplify, I depend on my body and mind to exist. And then my body and mind is a certain configuration. And when you see that, your mind labels on that a certain thing. It could be woman, nun, American, Amy, simply merely labeled on my body and mind. And then Amy comes into being. You label, Amy comes into being. There's no inherently existent Amy there for all time, because I would never have an ability to change. I would never die. Inherently existent things, think about it like this, are frozen in time and space. That's what it means, inherent existence. It's concrete. It's solid, it's permanent, it never changes. What do you know that exists like that? Seriously. What do you know that exists like that? So think about it. Think about it. So the more you can play with, and you go out in the world in everyday life, we've talked about this in other classes, you go out in everyday life and somebody bumps into you accidentally in the store. What's your response? I'm just curious, what's your response? You okay with that? Jenna? Usually I have to say in Amsterdam, people are pretty okay with that. I've noticed. You live in a gentle society. Seriously. You might think it's busy and you might complain. Try Philadelphia in the United States. It's a very different culture. It's where I'm from. And it's a gritty city and people are tough from Philadelphia. I always love when I go back because I'm kind of like, my peeps, these are my peeps. But it's a tough town, Philadelphia. So occasionally you're in the store, in a congested store, and it depends where you are, and somebody bumps into you, and people are they get a little upset. Sometimes people, hey, there's a little bit of an edge to people. I've seen it. I see people, how they're driving, how they are on the subways, and it's a little bit of that. So again, with emptiness, there's a nice, beautiful light cushion around you, because I don't exist inherently. And you're also thinking about karma if you're a practitioner. So if you bump into me, it's just a karmic result coming from my mind. I bumped into people by accident. I didn't mean it. I didn't have anything against them, right? So there's a fluidity to things. So when somebody appears to be causing you suffering, now we have had that in Amsterdam and in the Netherlands. Some of you experienced that. What's your experience of that? Do you ever have a boss you didn't like? Do you ever have a partner break up with you and you're really angry? Something your parents did made you really angry. Something your kid did that made you really angry. Your neighbor. We've all had those experiences. So how's your mind? What's your experience? Anybody online? What happens? Everything okay? Is it all okay when one of these issues happens? Okay, everybody's okay online. You're very highly realized. I'm so glad. Right? But you really have to think about this, that what tweaks you when you get tweaked, if you think about emptiness, the tweak goes away. Okay, but our minds aren't soaked in it yet. So something happens, and then there's a tightness, a rigidity in most people's minds. Hey, what about me? How dare you do that to me? And you go tell your friend, he said this to me. How could he say that? It was so rude. Why did he, because there's this me, there's a solidly existing me. So in practicing Tantra, Tompani Dugyur, everything is empty. That's the beginning. It's beautiful. It's fantastic. Sets you up for, okay. So then we have, Om Mani Padme Hum, let's just take the Buddha of infinite compassion, that mantra. Right. If you want to go through like a more mundane, it's not mundane, but explanation, what does that mean? Om Mani Padme Hum. Okay. Mani is jewel. Peme or Padme, the way it's written, but the Tibetans pronounce Peme, okay, is lotus flower. And Om is usually an opener for mantras. Hong is a closer, like Amen. Okay. Om Mani Padme Hum. A little bit is like the all of the universe. It's like a jewel in the lotus of my heart. You could think of it like that. Well, that's nice. It's a little bit like see God and everything. You know what? The all of the universe is like a jewel in the lotus of my heart. So whatever manifestation, bliss and void, again, I said it all comes down to bliss and void, my method and my view, compassion and wisdom. So the all of the universe, I go out there every day. This is what I want you to do this week for the rest of this course, but you go out, my everyday life, I go to the market to get food. The all of the universe is a jewel in the lotus of my heart. Okay. And there's your checkout line. Somebody got in the line first. Okay. But I'm going to use my method, my compassion. Let them go. Okay. I can wait patiently. Then I get to practice patience. That's a virtue that builds up imprints in my mind. Wonderful. Right. And I'm going to use my emptiness, my wisdom. I don't exist inherently. That person doesn't exist inherently. The cash register doesn't exist inherently. What's the problem here? Just fortunate to get wonderful food like we can buy in this country easily. You check out how you walk out, how I don't know, some of you live in flats? No. House? Neighbors are okay?
Yeah, they're fine.
Okay, good. Okay. Who lives in a flat? Old flat?
Yeah,
People upstairs, downstairs?
I'm upstairs.
Anybody noisy in your flat?
Mm.
I have noisy in my flat because it's an old building. So the floors, they didn't have insulation as much. So you hear, how does that work for you? It's okay? You're okay?
Yeah, I mean, my neighbor sometimes is aggressive.
It's aggressive. And
Yeah.
so how's that going for you?
Yeah, it's hard to do compassion, because she only goes away if you tell her that you will call the police. She's also a drunk.
Okay, so here's an issue, right? Does she exist inherently? Does she seem like she does when she's acting out?
Well,
Kind of scary, solidly there?
I know her for a long time, so it's more just frustrating because I know
Okay.
she's not inherently dangerous, but
Right.
she's just at home a lot, and I think she gets lonely.
Yeah. So you can have some compassion for her,
Yeah.
especially if you've known her for a
Mhm.
while. But you can also work on the irritation, the frustration can slowly
Yeah.
build, and when you think about her situation and
Mhm.
think of what she's going through, sometimes it can make it, and realizing that she doesn't exist inherently, and this was last weekend, it's coming from your mind.
Yeah.
Karma creates it. This is what Buddhism says, that my past karmic deeds of body, speech, and mind may not be anything you did in this life, could come in from past lives, is creating this to play on the movie screen of my life. Right now, it's a neighbor that's struggling. That sometimes makes me frustrated, like that. This is the Buddhist way to view it, rather than she's solidly out there. I can't stand she's doing this again. Oh, I have some compassion, but tired of this, like that. Yeah, we keep working with it. So a wisdom and method together, and you can say Om Mani Padme Hum. It's the mantra for that. It's a beautiful mantra. So again, I might be home and hearing I got a new guy upstairs. Okay, they're all really nice, these neighbors. Like I really like them. I'm not here all the time. You know, I come in and come out and but I had 3 people before upstairs that were incredibly loud. Boom, 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 boom. The music all night, sometimes till 4 a.m. I mean, it was just so again, my method of skillful means sometimes I slept with earplugs. It was the only way. What to do? Like earplugs are great. I travel a lot. You have to have earplugs when you travel anymore if you like quiet. One time I had to go upstairs. I was here 3 months. Only one time I had to go upstairs to say, you know, excuse me, knocked on the door. They were really nice. I did it in a nice way, you know, excuse me, please. Is there any way you could turn it down? And they were nice about it. You know, they had a different level of noise, what they felt was loud versus what I thought was loud. It's just like that. But again, there's no point in my getting upset with them because it comes from my mind. Like I've created that. I've done that to other people. It's just happening. So what's the most gentle way we can deal? And we try to combine the method and wisdom. And then what I do is if you have a suffering neighbor, ill or old or lonely, or there's so many people on the planet, but in my own practice, every day I do some practices and then I'll have some Om Mani Padme Hum mantras and maybe thinking of her in the space in front of me and sending beautiful light rays to her. It's a beautiful practice and it makes you feel better and it sets you up for deeper tantric practice like that. So these are kind of everyday. I like to also talk about practical ways that we can affect a higher, you know, more peaceful experience. Okay, makes sense? Possible to do? Okay, let me talk about 4 levels of Tantra. And I want to talk a little bit about the subtle body, and then that's probably all we're going to have time, but let's see. Okay, there's 4 classes of Tantra, and they correspond to a different level of desire you're trying to transform, okay, into the spiritual path. Different level of desire. We start with action or Kriya in Sanskrit, Kriya Tantra. It's an emphasis on external actions. It corresponds to looking or flirting or exchanging smiles, they just say. But Kriya Tantra practices, and I'll give you an example of the deity. There is a 1,000-arm Chinresik Kriya Tantra practice initiation you can have. 1,000-arm Chinresik is a beautiful, I don't know if we have one in the room, probably somewhere. Okay, so you can look in the case after, and it's a Buddha of compassion standing on a lotus, and he's got 1,000 arms, 1,000 hands. Each hand has an eye, so he sees all the different realms, all the different suffering, and all these 1,000 arms to reach out to help, like that. So if you got an initiation, which they give at that base level, the first level, into that thing, and you get that initiation, most initiations I've been in have been either first level Tantra, Kriya or Action Tantra, or highest Yoga Tantra, the highest level. We don't get many in second and third, but I'll talk about those. So when you're doing this practice, and we also have a Nungne retreat. Nungne means abiding in the fast. That is a practice to that particular Buddha. And you do a lot of mantras of his, visualization, and you do a lot of prostrations. But the significance of this external behavior is when you're doing these practices, and if you're taking the initiation, you stay very, very clean, right? And they'd say before those initiations at that level, don't eat any eggs, onion, garlic, meat, you know, before you want to stay very clean for I think the night before and the day of the initiation. They ask you often to refrain from eating those foods for that day, like that. And so when we do a Nungne practice, for instance, to that deity, they often tell you before each session, brush your teeth, wash your face, you know, try to shower every day, try to have clean clothes, because it just emphasizes that external cleanliness. Then you come number 2, performance Tantra, Acharya, it's called in Sanskrit. Acharya Tantra is an emphasis on external and internal practices, could correspond to transforming holding hands. The desire that comes from holding hands gets transformed into the path. Number 3 is Yoga Tantra, is coming more to an emphasis on internal practice. So the first was an external experience. The next is external and internal. Now we're in internal practice, and it corresponds to transforming the desire you feel. And this is more on a subtle energy system of kissing transforming that into the spiritual path. Okay, then you come to number 4, highest yoga tantra, called Maha Anuttara yoga. Corresponds to sexual union. So the bliss you have in sexual union gets transformed. You use that desire into the spiritual path, transforming it. Highest yoga tantra deities are deities often you will see in union, but there are some kind of lesser deities of that. One I'll call Vajrayogini, Chittamani Tara. These are both female deities that are actually alone in their visualization, not in union. Okay, but if you have a deity called Yamantaka, Chakrasambhara, Hevadra, Kalachakra, these are all deities you'll see in union, in like that. And so these are, you'd have an initiation into the highest yoga tantra level, like that. So then what it's doing is it's using, when we're actually doing completion stage of the tantric practice, which once you've been initiated, then you get your sadhana, do your generation stage, and then can use subtle energy once you get kind of initiated and instructions on that. And what we're using is, there's a subtle energy system, by the way, that runs through your system, runs through your whole body. When you can use that subtle energy, you can help to actualize higher states of realization. So I'll give you an example. We have what's called a central channel that runs right through the center of your body. It starts from the third eye position, or the center of your forehead, and it's about the diameter of a drinking straw. And it runs up to the crown chakra, which is, chakra means wheel, okay? And it curves back around and goes right down a little bit more towards your spine, right through the center of your body, where the lower end is open and comes 4 finger widths below your navel, is the bottom end of the central channel. Okay, they say that central channel is relatively kind of bluish in color on the outside, but a translucent tube of light. And again, about the diameter of a drinking straw. To its sides are the side channels, okay? Respectively, a right and left side channel, okay? The upper openings start from the nostrils and go right along the side of the central channel up. And so we have these energy centers in the body, chakras, which means wheel, again, in Sanskrit. There's one at the crown. There's one at the throat. There's one at the heart, navel, sexual organs, okay? And then there's little energy centers around the body, but these are main chakras. So if you ever notice, if you have a big shock to your system, you have tension, you have a tremendous stress coming in, you get an alarming phone call, don't you sometimes feel a gripping somewhere in your body, like the throat, the heart, the stomach? Like, it's those energy centers that are activating. You know, they store energy. So it's related to your mind. Your mind is what makes the body function. You know, and those things. So what happens is we have different winds, channels, and drops. And the channels have knots that go around them in a subtle way. It's not that you can cut open the body and go, oh, there's the central channel. It's not like that. These are visualized systems. And one Lama even told me that, do they really exist, even on a meditational level? Or are we taught to visualize them there to actualize these experiences subtly? I don't know, it's a debatable point, okay? So, but you definitely feel the energy in your body and things like that. So why don't we use that energy? And you feel a lot of energy when you're having sex, when you're having ordinary sex, there's no doubt. So what we're trying to do is, the side channels, the right is slightly reddish in color on the outside. Again, a translucent tube of light that happens to be, both side channels are half the diameter of the central channel. They're running, so they go up to the crown chakra. The left channel is slightly whitish in color on the outside, translucent tube of light, up to the crown chakra, curves around, goes right down through the spine, closer to the spine. And the lower ends of those side channels curl and enter the lower end of the central channel. That again is 4 finger widths below your navel. So they end up there. So what we're trying to do in the highest experience of our tantric practice is we're trying to bring the winds into the central channel through the meditative states that we actualize through the practices, through the sadhana. like that. And through the meditation, the visualization, and the mantra recitation. Okay, and especially when you're using completion stage with these subtle winds and things like that. And it takes a long time to set up these visualizations. You're trying to, once again, bring the winds from the side channels, okay, and have them properly enter the central channel at the base of the central channel. Now, what happens with sexual orgasm is the winds get close to entering, but they don't enter the right way. But that's why it's so blissful. So can you imagine if you get them in? It's supposed to, you know, so this is what the realm the Buddhas, this is the realm the enlightened mind lives in. That sort of bliss every single moment. And your mind doesn't deviate. You don't lose the bliss. Sexual orgasm, you hang out there for what, 6 seconds or something like that? You get like a minute of the afterglow, maybe, and then it's gone. No, you actualize the state. You live in the state all the time, but you control the state. But you're not doing it just for your own bliss. You're doing it to actualize higher states of realization that get you to Buddhahood, a perfect state for the purpose of benefiting all living beings. For the purpose of benefiting all living beings. That's the Mahayana path. Question. Wait, am I making sense? Are we communicating? People getting, so I'm just giving you kind of an overview. Please.
Sure. You said these it's a goal to get these channels to come around and up into
The channels are already there. The channels you could visualize, there's an energy there, but our channels tend to be clogged. And what clogs them is delusion, is imbalances in our mind. Every time I get angry at somebody, every time I have desire, an uncontrolled desire, it could be desire for, I go to the store and I want those socks. I want the ice cream cone, or I want to make love with this person, like that. It could be pride, jealousy, fear, anxiety, depression, doubt, holding wrong views. You get the idea. Every time our mind's imbalanced, and these are states of mind that are ordinary for us to experience. We all experience these. You know, as soon as I name some of them popped up for you, like, that's my big one. Go after your biggest delusion first, meaning get into some of the basic courses and learn what are the antidotes for some of these delusions, and start working on it every day through having a consistent meditation practice, learning some of the other things to deepen the practice, studying a bit, reading some of the books, like that. So those create obstructions in the channels. There's knots that some of the channels loop around and create knots. So that's what happens. That's where anxiety gets. I'm not thinking clearly. That's why people have meltdowns. That's why people, you know, have breakdowns, and people suddenly yell at somebody or say something snippy to somebody, or think horrible thoughts about somebody, or think horrible thoughts about themselves. Is just coming from the clogging of the spacious open space as it should be. Does that help, or do you have other?
My question was more about,
Yeah.
you made this action of the sort of hooking around,
Mhm.
and you said, but like, so normally they don't quite hook around. And
No, that's the normal configuration of them, is
oh,
the
so they
lower
normally
ends
are
go
hooking
in.
around.
Yeah.
So then what is the goal? Like to get the
Is to get the energy moving in them,
uh-huh.
and having them unobstructed so that the energy goes into the central channel.
So the energy is going to come down, around, and then up.
And then up through into the central channel. And then you'll actualize, what you'll actualize at that point, it's something you can practice and actually actualize it in your mind before the winds come in.
The blockage is going down and up.
Yeah, and the chakras have blockages as well.
Yeah.
So sometimes in completion states, we're working on visualizations initially to just visualize me unblocking those channels like that in a visualization. And then what we're doing is, and you're doing these practices over and over again to just keep the cleaning process, while I'm also trying to maintain good conduct and good ethics that externally help me keep, you know, that I'm practicing. I've got good virtuous imprints on my mind, less distractions, I'm leading an ethical life, things like that. Yeah, it all kind of is a combination in many things.
That's one more.
Yes, please.
So if there's a blockage, let's say in the heart chakra, does that manifest differently when the energy is going down versus when it's going up? And if so, how?
I'm not sure if it would manifest differently,
Mhm.
but it's also where disease comes from.
Mhm.
So the different blockages can create, first on a lighter level, it just is like a disturbance, or you might feel, sometimes we'll, like the throat feels a little clogged one morning, but then it can be worse diseases can come from that when they get really blocked. I mean, they'll often say the Tibetan medical system is a very different look at our system than our Western medical system, like that. So they'll often say that's where it comes from, different blockages. And through the karma in your mind, meaning the seeds that get planted in your consciousness from your body, speech, and mind, create imprints in the consciousness that will show up as certain diseases we manifest later, certain blockages, whether it's gross or subtle, like that. So again, through purification practices, if you can purify soon enough, you may not even experience the disease. So instead of having a brain tumor, you might just get a really bad headache. You know, if you don't purify quickly enough or soon enough, then it could manifest as a disease. And then what you do as a serious practitioner is sometimes we've gone to our lamas to say, I got a cancer diagnosis. The doctor wants me to do this, this, and this, and I'd like to follow that. And you might ask your guru for, to kind of pipe in. What do they think? Sometimes they'll give you medicine to take. Sometimes they'll tell you, in addition to the medical treatment, then also do this practice, do this long life practice or something. And some of them have worked enormously well, incredibly well. Sometimes they'll tell you not to do the Western treatment, but it's your choice. And then do these practices. And I know people that have cured them, the cancer went away. So then you go, well, how is that possible? One of my friends with late stage cancer, the Western, again, this is where you have to understand the workings of karma and emptiness that affect this, along with Tantra practice. And he had cancer with the Western doctors giving him about 6 months to live. And then he went to this Tibetan medical doctor. This was some years ago. He was living in New Mexico. This Tibetan medical doctor had come through, one of the top medical people at the time. He was amazing. I met him once and got treated by him. And so he gave him this medicine. He told him the cause of the cancer. Like, he actually told him the cause was he disturbed, and he said to him that the doctor said to him, he didn't know much about his life, but he met with him. The doctor was on a tour in the States, meeting with people for consultations, medical consultations, if you have faith in it. And so he didn't know much about him, but he said, you've been moving earth at you've been moving earth at your house? And he just completed this huge rock garden with huge construction at his house in New Mexico. And he said, yes. And he said, well, you disturbed one of the kind of earth spirits, nagas. They protect water, and it made you sick. And he said, so then he had him doing these medicines and doing a practice to that particular spirit. Like, first he had to do it every day, for months, I think he did it. Then the doctor came back and he said, you can just do it once a week now. And then he went back to the medical treatment, to the medical doctors, and the cancer was in remission. Cancer was disappearing. And they didn't do any treatment. They just said, whatever you're doing, keep doing it. So you have to, we have to think about literal, to get out of our kind of mundane experience of everything this is what they tell us, it's here and now it's concrete. There's another way to think about it when you're working with your mind. Your mind is incredible. It's incredible. You can fix anything with your mind, and you can be anything. That's what's amazing. We can be a Buddha, everybody in this room, but it's going to take effort. That's the only thing. And it's so samsara, I mentioned this yesterday, is very, very loud, meaning the cyclic existence. And I'm not just talking about a noise level. It's very loud as far as distractions, and the distractions are delectable, some of them. So it's very hard to kind of sit down and be like, and people want to try to meditate and they can't concentrate at all, and they give it up after a couple of days. And so again, that's why a community like this and a center like this is really helpful, to just slowly guide you through some programs, give you the support, you talk to other practitioners. This is what worked for me. This is really hard. And we move along, we muddle along like that. And hopefully each life actualizing, just imprinting a little bit more, better evolution. I'm a little bit better this time, a little bit better this time, a little bit better. Good enough. That's great. That's great. I don't know if is that helpful?
Yes.
I mean, I don't know exactly if the energy's moving down, gets blocked, moving up, would it be, I don't know exactly how that would manifest like that. We'd like to get rid of all the blockages like that. Okay. Let me see if there's one last thing I want to say and then I'll, oh, I must play this. Let me play this video from Lama Yeshi to give you a gush of this. This is just really nice for you to meet Lama and just hear his style of. Okay, let me find this video. Here we go. And I'll share my screen. You can see it'll come up here. So this is Lama in a course called Intro to Tantra. Okay, great. Somehow this. How do we get the sound on? Is there a way you can?
You have to share the sound separately. Just like last time.
Okay. Not yet. Mm-mm. I can't put mine on because it echoes.
No, you just stop now. And then share again. Just start the video again. And not only share the video, but also the sound.
Sound is off.
Okay.
Manita? Heb jij de video, Manita?
Nee, ik heb van Lisette heb ik part 1 gekregen. Lisette sent me an email with part 1 and I noticed that this was part 2.
It was what? I'm sorry.
She says she has part 1 and you wanted to show part 2.
No, I'm showing part 1. It's the beginning. Just 23 minutes in. But anyway, is there a way we can do it? Because I have it right here. I just don't know how to get the sound on. Last time I thought I just turned my sound on. So is there something that you can turn off?
In Teams, I know how to do it. But
Okay.
not in Zoom.
Okay,
So I'm sorry.
that's okay. So if I
But
put
you
this
can-
on, no, it's still, yeah, okay.
No, there has to be a button for share the video and another button for share the sound, but I don't know.
Okay, and I
how it
wonder
is.
if I go here, let me just look at the audio options.
Must be in the system, but.
Oh, wait, no, that's in Zoom. Let me just see. We'll just give it another minute and see.
I can see if I can try to share. Maybe
Here's audio. That's my audio here with Zoom, my Zoom audio.
What if you mute the microphones? Because you don't need them to play the sound. And now it's.
Yeah, do I turn my microphone off? Is that?
But it's not the trick. I want to
Okay.
do that on the internet.
Okay.
But it's. fix some time.
But Manita, if you have it, wait, I'm just gonna turn this off for a moment. And just see,
Yeah, and then go to minute 23.
yes, it's minute 23, exactly. Thank you. And we'll just play about 5 minutes. If it's possible. If not, we'll do it next week.
The link was in the OneDrive folder, I think.
Select share sound, but I didn't see any button to
Okay,
share sound.
maybe
so-
she's got it there.
Mhm.
Am I sharing the screen now?
If you can, but it's not sharing yet.
Oh.
Okay, great. Yeah. Great, and if you could just watch till about 28 minutes, 30 seconds. We want to stop it there. So 23 minutes. If you go back to 23. Can she hear me?
Yeah, 23.
Okay.
The word.
She's 25 minutes,
Mhm.
25 minutes, so.
The thing is, the renunciation of samsara, the mind, which is, maybe deep,
Now we're hearing, but.
Yeah, we're
Video
hearing,
is
but we're
not
not
running.
seeing, yeah.
deep touch. All the deep, phenomena.
You're not
of
seeing
all
it?
existing phenomena.
No.
No.
Mm.
Oh.
I can try one more time.
So this
Okay, we'll have to do it next week.
Yeah.
Maybe it will help if the speaker in the Gompa is turned off. The big one next to Nana.
Yes, I turned it.
Is that
on.
off? Okay.
Oh, it is off. Okay, no.
Okay, wait, we're gonna try.
I think the sound comes out of this one
Yeah.
and the microphone is here.
Yeah.
So it should be the same source. So maybe if you can use the microphone, you can mute it.
Yeah, if you can
Please.
mute something there on that end.
Yeah.
Or let me put this- let me put this back on. Can you hear me online? Okay, so I wanted to stop there. We're out of time. We're going to finish with some dedication prayers, but I want you to next week, think about the opening meditation. It wasn't the full meditation, but just think about in general life. Some of you have been online, have been doing this for a while. Some of you are new, doesn't matter. The grounding again, roots, like you're connected to the earth, like that. So feel that grounding when you get too scattered, too spaced out. You're not thinking well, you're not tracking, you're not mindful. Let yourself ground. And then sometimes we're too leaden, too lazy, lying on the couch all day, too much streaming online, whatever. Then think about the spaciousness of your mind. A clear awareness is really your mind, not busyness, not clutter, not anxiety. There's a clear, so think about coming, letting the space come out of the consciousness up beyond the universe in a sense of that spacious feeling we were doing in the beginning. Bring that up and then just find the balance. Spend a little time, find the balance. A little bit every day you can contemplate, a little bit think about that. Think about your own, so the Lam Rim, we're going to talk more about the next session, 3 principles of the path. The Lam is path, Rim is stages, steps on the path. This is our fundamental philosophy making up the Paramitayana, the Sutrayana approach of the philosophy that lays a grounded foundation for tantric practice. So I want to talk about why that's important. We'll talk more about the guru and things like that, but I really want to talk about, so think about the Lam Rim. If you're new to it, you can explore, you can look a little bit up online, Lam Rim, and I'll talk more about that next week. And yeah, so I was just thinking about the meditation. There's also some readings online you can have a look at, Intro to Tantra. I would recommend, one of the books I recommend is Lama Yeshe's Introduction to Tantra is a great book. So basically what we're doing is also thinking about when you go out every day. First of all, he's talking about bodhicitta, generating the good heart. So an initial motivation, even in the morning, like the motivation we had tonight to become enlightened, to benefit all. What's your motivation for any activity when you go out? You're just thinking about yourself, thinking about others, to see if we can create a broader motivation, a Mahayana motivation, and feeling that goodness, and then poke a little bit at your reality, that things are coming from your mind and that there's no concrete separate nature from these beings. And Lama talks about the totality, he's saying, is we get so consumed in our own little world that is really circling me, myself, and I. What about other beings? What about considering them like that? So try to find a little bit more spaciousness this week in that. Okay, we're going to conclude with some of our dedication prayers. Wherever I put them. Let me find this again. Here we go. So taking whatever merit we may have created from discussing emptiness, from discussing bodhicitta and tantra, whatever positive energy we've created, let's invest it, let's dedicate it to our being able to lay a good foundation, to be able to then find the right teacher and get a tantric initiation and practice tantra well and keep all of our vows, because it automatically will get us to enlightenment so that we can really be the most benefit to all living beings. We can read together if you like. May whatever virtue I've collected benefit the teachings and all transmigratory beings. May it especially cause the essence of perfect pure Losang Drakpa's teachings to shine forever. A short mandala, wherever that went. Can't seem to get these in the right document. Okay. This ground anointed with perfume, strewn with flowers, adorned with Mount Meru, the four continents, the sun and the moon, I imagine as a Buddha land and offer it. May all transmigratory beings enjoy this pure land. Idam Guru Ratna Mandalakam Niratayami. Ngewadi nyoduda lama sange drugyone drowa chikyam malupa Dehi sala uparsho. Jangju Senjo Rinpoche, Mage Panam Ge Gyurchik, Te Panyam Pa Me Pa Yi, Gone Gondu Belwa Sho. May the precious Supreme Bodhicitta not yet born arise. May that arisen not decline, but increase more and more. And Rinpoche says to do the dedication with emptiness. Very important to just think about emptiness, any understanding you have of emptiness. Due to all the past, present, and future merits collected by me, the numberless Buddhas and numberless sentient beings, which are completely empty of existing from their own side, may I, who am completely empty of existing from my own side, achieve the state of full enlightenment, which is completely empty of existing from its own side, and lead all sentient beings who are completely empty of existing from their own side to that state which is completely empty of existing from its own side, by myself alone, who am completely empty of existing from my own side. The long life prayer for His Holiness the Dalai Lama. In the land encircled by snow mountains, you are the source of all happiness and good. All powerful Chenrezig Tenzin Gyatso, please remain until samsara ends. And lastly, the swift return prayer for Rinpoche coming back. Peerless teacher and assembly of the children of the victorious one, Shravakas and Pratyeka Buddhas, victorious Losang father and sons, along with the lineage masters, all the objects of refuge of infinite lands, please bestow the virtue and goodness of accomplishing this prayer here and now. Holding and spreading the Muni's precious and complete teachings, through explanation and practice, you wore the armor of patience that is never discouraged. Incomparable Venerable Guru, to you I make requests. While striving single-pointedly for the sake of the victorious one's teachings, the sole gateway through which all benefit and happiness emerge, and from other living beings you suddenly departed to peace, what a great loss. Nevertheless, through the undeceiving truth of the blessings of the oceans of the three jewels and the great waves of bodhicitta of the children of the victorious ones, may the smile of a reincarnation swiftly beam in glory for fortunate disciples. So I'd like to dedicate as well for all those suffering around the planet tremendously. May they have immediate relief from the suffering completely, for all the wars to be ended immediately, and for all the minds of the leaders of totalitarian regimes be turned immediately, merged immediately with emptiness and bodhicitta, for the great flourishing of all of our centers and harmony at and among all of our centers, especially Maitreya Institute and our retreat center in Lunnen. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you for joining online. And thank you, Manita and Nana, for helping. And lovely to see all of you. Look forward to seeing you next week.
Thank you.